Dear fellow coders, welcome to Untitled Coder. This is day 5 of 30 days of ML by Kaggle. In case if you are new to this series, this is where I make Kaggle's challenges as videos so that you and I can go through the same together. And before I begin with day 5's video, my sincere apologies for uploading this video quite late. I usually do it earlier, but today I had a lot of work to finish. So apologies if you are expecting this video slightly before. What is today's video about? So today's challenge, first of all, day 5 challenge is about list and loops and list comprehensions. So what we are going to do is we are going to split this video into two sections, two separate videos. In fact, the first video that you are seeing now is going to be only about list. In the next video, I'll talk about loops and list comprehensions. So you have two different topics separately. So let's get started with the first tutorial, which is about list. You might have already seen about list, so you don't it's not completely new concept. In the previous sections we might have seen this thing. So what is list? List is nothing but an ordered sequence of values. So you have got values and it is ordered in the way of the position of the list, like 0th element, first element, second element, third element. So list is a type of a data structure where you have got multiple elements of values. So why do we need list? So this question answers that. When you need multiple elements or multiple values arranged together, then you need list. For example, you can say A is equal to 2, you can say B is equal to 3, but what if you want one object or one Python variable where you want to store more than one element, and that's where list comes in. So this is very similar to array concept in multiple other programming languages. So that's for your information. So list, so now you can see that you have got a list which has like multiple numbers. You can have a list like this as well, where you have got multiple strings, and you can have a list which is made of other list. So like you had string here, like a number here, this list is made of multiple list. So you can see one list within that multiple list. And another important thing to notice is this bracket. The square bracket that you see is what denotes list. So anytime you print some output, you print something, and then the result you see square bracket, which means your output is a list. So this is very important to notice. Going forward, we might deal with more data structure. So it's very important for you to pay attention to what kind of output that you get. So single square bracket means a list. So you can keep that in mind. One of the most unique things, or I don't know, at least a good thing in Python is you can have a list with multiple variable types. Most programming languages, arrays would not allow you to store multiple different values, different types of values in a same variable. Like for example, you can have a number, you can have a string as well, and you can have something else, like if you want as well, like function. So you can see, so like one list can have multiple different object type. So that's an information. So how do we access a list? So list, like I said, it's ordered, which means it is ordered by its position, which is what we call indexed. And we have seen before, Python is a zero index language, which means Python's indexing starts from 0. So when you see planets here, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. So Mercury stands at the 0th position. We don't say it's first position, we say it's 0th position. So what's the next one? It's first one. Like first one is the second position. And what if this is like the closest one? Okay, this is the closest one, that is 0th position. What if you want to get the last one, which is like the last one which is closest to the end, not to the closest to the first, closest to the end, or I should say the farthest one. So the way you can do that is you can see that when you see -1, so when you say 0 you get Mercury, when you say 1 you get Venus. When you say -1, you can see it starts with Neptune, which means when you use the negative sign, it starts with the reverse. So it, like you can ignore the first one. So when you say -1, it starts from the last most value, and that way you are able to extract from the last most value. That's again very helpful when you are actually doing list slicing. And what is slicing? It's quite simple, as the name suggests. Like if you have got a cucumber, how do you slice it? You might slice it into 2 pieces. The same way, if you want to take a bunch of components, bunch of elements from a list, that's what we call as list slicing. Maybe you want the first 3 planets, 0 to 3, 0th position, first one, second one. So it doesn't include the last one. Okay, 0th, first, second. So what if you want the first three? There is other ways. Usually you can ignore 0. So if the starting point, if you do not give anything, by default it will start from the 0. So you can just give square brackets, first the object name, which is a list, then square brackets, you are trying to indicate that you are going to access it through index, and then you are giving the value which starts from this, ends from this. Because you do not give any starting value, which means 0th position is the starting value, and then you give ending value, which is 3rd, which means it's going to end at, I mean this is 3, but it's going to end at 3rd position. So 3 minus 1. And if you leave out end index, as you might have expected, it will go till the end of the list. So whatever is the length of the list, it will go till the end of the list. Length of the list or end of the list. Okay, so that is basically you saying like give me all the planets from the 3rd like index number 3, which is like 4th position, till the end. So that's what we have seen. And then even while index slicing, you can use negative indices. So the way you do it is, you want to start from the 2nd element till the last, like the pre-last, then you can do like this. So 2nd, which is indicated by 1 index value, and we already saw when you use -1, it goes till Neptune, but because you are ending this with, it is going to start 1 step before Neptune. So 1:-1 means starts 2nd from this side, it ends with the last, like 2nd to the last, so it ends there. And then the last 3 planets you can start with like this. So give me the last 3, which is -3 of, sorry, -3 colon, so which means you get like this from this side. So you get, it start from this side, 1 2 3. So 1 2 3, and that's what you would see here when you see -3. So 1 2 3, and you get Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. So now one of the most important things about list is mutability property. So what you have to understand about mutability? What is mutable? First of all, like if you have ever seen X-Men and many of the science fiction movies, you would have probably heard about a concept called mutation. In those genre, what is mutation is basically taking a gene and then mutating one particular component of the gene. In the same way, what is mutation in Python is, if you have an object, something like this, can you change one value of it? Is it possible? If it is possible, then we say that object is mutable. If it is not possible, then we say it is immutable. So mutability basically means you have an object, a type of object like planets, and then you want to change something. Like for example, in the 3rd position, instead of Earth, you have to say something else. Is it possible? If it is possible, then you say list is mutable. Basically, list is mutable in Python, which means any list you can update it. So now you might ask me, what is not mutable? So we are going to see tuple in the future section. So tuple is not mutable, but for now let's keep it aside and then see how you can mutate or change the value in a Python's list. And it is quite simple. You might have guessed it before. How? So the way you access a particular element in a list is using the index, right? So planets of 3 would give you 0, 1, 2, 3, like Mars. So now instead of Mars, you can assign a different value, and that value will get assigned to this thing. As simple as that. You can either assign a single value or you can assign a multiple value. The same way you do slicing, you can actually assign multiple values as well. So you can do that as well. So your end list would look like this. So if you assign one value, instead of Mars, you have something like Malacandra. Or if you want to assign multiple values, for example, you're saying that my first 3 values should be mu, v, u. I don't know what does it mean. So like you can assign these 3 values. And then still if you want some more, like you can just like assign some more values as well. So basically your output would look like this. So this is another list property. Mutability is a very important concept. You should keep it in mind. A lot of times you might deal with a function. So when you actually deal with something in a function, it is possible that you might change the value of the list as well. So you may not have the older list, the list would have got updated. So there are a lot of instances where this might happen when you not necessarily want it. Probably that might result in a semantic error. So you should keep in mind that list is mutable. So list is not immutable, list is mutable, which means you can change the value in a list during the execution of a course of a program. What is now list function? List function is nothing but the functions that can help you understand a list better or do something on a list. For example, if you have a list, one of the properties of list is the length of a list. How many elements are there on a list? So len, L-E-N, helps you identify the length of the list. How many elements are there on a list? Of course, planet says 8, right? Like we all kicked out Pluto. So next function is called sorted. What is sorted? It is basically a function to arrange or order, sort a list based on a particular order. Like if you have number, then it would be ascending order. If you have alphabets, it will be in an alphabetical order. So that's what sorted is. And very simply, if you have got a list with just numbers, you can use sum, and then that would give you sum of the list. 2 plus 3 5, 5 plus 5 7, sorry 5 plus 5 10, 10 plus 7 8, 17. So you have got sum of primes, you got 17. Another thing you might have previously done, which is min and max, we have used. So min and max, the same way we use min and max, you can just use min of the list value, and then that would give you minimum value, max of the list value, that would give you maximum value. So there are a lot of functions like this that would help you. But if there is one very important function you have to remember in this thing, which is len, this is extremely helpful. For example, if you want to loop through a list, you might want to know the number of elements in a list sometimes, and the easiest way for you to get that number of element is use len. Finish, you use len of the list, and then you get the total number of values. So len is quite helpful. You would probably use it a lot. Okay, so now this is a section where the author actually tries to explain what is an object. So you might have seen that so far, like in all the sections that we discussed, we might have been using a word called object. So like in many other programming language, you would probably see like somebody specifically using a word called variable, but here if you see, like we might be using object for everything. So what does it mean? So in short, objects carry some things around with them, so you can access that stuff, whatever objects carry, with a dot syntax, like a dot notation. What does it mean? It means, like for example, there's a number, let's say x is equal to 12, a number. Okay, so now for you, x is just a number, right? But for Python, x is a real number and it has an imaginary part which is 0. Okay, so now when you print x dot imag, imag, so now you know that x is an object that carries an associated, value or thing or attribute, which is imag, and when you print that, you get value 0 because x is a real number with an imaginary part 0. Okay, and that is how you make complex numbers. For example, if you take 12 plus 3j, so now you are actually creating a complex number. So now when you say 3 of image, so now this 3 is your imaginary number. So what we want to say here is not teach how to write complex numbers or real numbers, but what we are saying is whenever you talk about object, so that object usually has some attributes or methods associated with it, and we can access that using this dot syntax. Okay, so now that takes us to the next section, which is called method or attribute. What is a method? A method is nothing but a function that you can act upon an object. Method is a function that is attached to an object. An attribute is just a value attached to an object. If it is not a function, then you can call it attribute. If it is a function, then you can call method. So what does it mean? It means, like example x bit length. What is the bit length of x? So now you can see it says it's a function. So then you have to use parenthesis, and then the result you have got is 4. So from this you have got 4 is the bit length. And if you remember, like another thing is, if you remember, most of the solutions that we have done, if you go to the previous section, most of the solutions we have done, you would have seen q1 dot solution, q2 dot solution. So those things, the solution that they have given as the check, the hint, all those were actually methods within, like accessed with these objects. So you can just go back to the exercise, or probably even while we do this exercise, you might notice this. So that is what method is. And then the next thing is help. So help we have already seen. So the same way we can pass functions to get help, we can pass methods to get help as well. So that will give us an understanding about what this method is supposed to do. So you just give the object name and then the method name, and then you get the help for that. So this is again another helpful thing. A lot of people might not know that you can get help for method as well. So now again, to quickly summarize, what is a method? Method is nothing but a function attached to an object, an attribute something but something that is other than a function attached to an object. Okay, now what kind of methods, list methods we have or that are more useful for us? One very important thing or most used thing is append. As the name suggests, it simply takes the value that you give here and then appends it to the list. And you have to understand that you don't have to necessarily like assign the value, so you can actually see like how it works. So for example, when you run this thing, you can see it appends an object to the end of the list. So if you have planets, right, you have planets, you didn't assign it back to the planets, just remember it. You're not saying planets is equal to planets.append. We didn't do that. Just by saying append, which means because of the mutability property, Pluto gets added to the planets, and then now you have got planets which has Pluto as well, even when you did not explicitly assign anything. So that's another thing to remember. Same way, if you use pop, it will automatically remove it, and then planets would not have the popped value. So pop usually takes it out. So if by any chance you have studied computer science and then you have studied stack, you must probably remember pop. So pop is to remove the last element. So pop will remove the last element, append will add one new value to the last of the list. And if you want to search something in a list, again it's quite simple. There are multiple ways to do it. One of the easiest ways to use a list method called index. And when you use index of particular value, it will say the position, the index in which that value is present, that element is present. For example, if you say planets.index of Earth, then you get 2 as a result, because this is in the second position. Now this is in the third position, which is like 0, 1, 2. Next, what if you look for Pluto? Does Pluto exist? No, Pluto doesn't exist. So it says Pluto is not in the list. There's a value error because the value does not exist. The Pluto is not in the list. Another simple way, like this is all fine, but the simplest way for you to do is Earth in planets. Simple, isn't it simple? It just returns a Boolean value. If Earth is in planets, you can see true. If Earth does not exist in planets, then you can see false. Like for example, what is this? Calbifrox is not it's not a planet. I don't know what does it mean. What does it mean? Okay, there is no answer. So it does not exist in planets, so we have got a false. In operator is quite useful. So when we enter into the looping world, in operator is going to help us a lot. So remember that there is something called in. So now this is all about list. We'll quickly see what is a tuple, and then we'll move on to the actual tutorial. So now what is a tuple? Tuple is exactly like list. You would not see a lot of difference with respect to tuple, except two things. You would not see a lot of difference. What are those two things? One, the way a tuple is created is different from the way a list is created. A list is created with a square bracket. A tuple is created with this bracket. I don't know what is this bracket. So close bracket, right? So a tuple is created from parenthesis or close bracket. List is created from square bracket. Oh, is that the only difference? No, it is not the only difference. Why? Tuple is immutable. You cannot modify an element of a tuple. For example, so we have created a tuple like this: 1, 2, 3 is equal to t. So now by default, because you have got more than one value and then you did not specify it as a list, by default t is now a tuple. So tuple or tuple, whatever you would like to say. So now if you say t of 0, like accessing the same way like a list, and if I want to assign it to 100, it doesn't accept. So it says tuple object does not support item assignment. Basically it's saying that I'm immutable. You cannot change a value inside me after you create me. You probably have to destroy the entire me and reassign the entire value. That is still possible. Like for example, you can still say t is equal to 2, 3. You can still do that, which in this case, like you are entirely erasing the existing t and creating a new t. But can you change the value within a t? No, you cannot change value within the t. So that's one thing to remember. So next, Where is tuple useful, right? So you might think, where is tuple useful? Tuple is extremely useful when something more than one is returned to you and you want to capture it. For example, this number has a method called as_integer ratio. So this is a decimal floating point and you want to get the integer ratio of it. So 1 by 8. 1 divided by 8 is 0.125. But if you want to get it, the easiest way to do that is using this method as_integer_ ratio. And now that is going to return you two values. But how are they going to return the two values? They're going to return it as tuple. And if you want to capture that into two different values, the simplest way to do is numerator, denominator. By this time, something must come to your mind, which we did in the previous section, which is, what would you do if you want to swap two values in Python? Like for example, you have a is equal to 2, b is equal to 3. How would you swap the values of a and b without using a temporary variable? And that's exactly what this Python trick is all about, using tuple. So a is equal to 1, b is equal to 0. All you have to do is a comma b is equal to b comma a. Now b's value goes to a's value goes to b. All done. So simply you have done this thing. Tuple is again extremely helpful in a lot of places where you don't want the value of one element to be changed. You would use tuple. For example, to give you a very simple example, so like let's say longitude and latitude. So you don't want anybody to change the value of it. So you would probably use tuple there, because that will help you. In keeping the value intact, so nobody changes it. A lot of these things will help you when you actually start coding, and that's what we're going to do. Let's start the coding challenge. I'm still skeptical and thinking whether I should do exercises, because I might be indirectly letting people, or I might be indirectly demotivating people. So my usual disclaimer that I usually do here is, please do the exercise yourself. Do not watch this section. It's completely fine. Close this until now and then move ahead. Do exercise yourself. Until you code, you will not learn. It's like cooking. If you do not do it yourself, as long as you watch any video, you would find that you would find that you are doing good, but you are not doing good until you code yourself. So don't watch this section, code it yourself. If you find a problem, just come back here. So okay, complete the function. Okay, let me just run this. Okay, complete the function below according to the docstring. Return the second element of the given list. If the list has no second element, return none. Okay, so we can say if return list of second element. So incorrect. Why is it saying incorrect? While you call the function with arguments, this thing, it is raising an error. Okay, exception. So in programming, if you're not familiar with this, in programming, whenever something is thrown like this, an error that you have not handled, you call it an exception. Okay, so this is an exception because you did not handle the error, so that's why we're calling it an exception. So if you want to handle it, so we can see for example, if length of list is less than 2, which means length is less than 2, right? So it means there is no second element. So then return none. Okay, else return L of 2, L of 1, right? Oops, did I just, L is not defined. Okay, I have not given the capital uppercase. Correct. So what we have done, we have said if the length is less than 2, which means the second element does not even exist, return none. If the length is not less than 2, then return the second element. I hope it is clear. Okay, so you are analyzing a sports team. Members of each team are stored in a list. The coach given a list of teams where each team is a list of names. Return the second player captain from the last listed team. Okay, now this is okay. So basically, I think they are saying that there are multiple teams. So return the last player, which means teams of complete the function below to select the captain of the host team. So the last team is usually like we can select like this, and what are they saying? They're saying like from the last one you need to return the second player, which is captain. So last is this, right? Second is this. Let's run it. Oops. So got a none value. given teams of Paul. Okay, so let's try to run it. But expected value of string, did you forget to return something? Of course we forgot to return. Okay, correct. So when you have the last, okay, teams, okay, last value, okay, with from the last we are trying to get the second. So this is list of lists. You got it right. So if I make a mistake, they'll show an example. Okay, oops, yeah. So now imagine this is how teams look like. Okay, so now multiple teams. Now from the last value you are trying to extract the second one. Like maybe there are many things like this. From the last list, like this element, you are getting the second name. So that is like last second. Okay, I guess this is giving you clarity. The next one is the next iteration of your card will feature an blah blah blah. Okay, there are a lot of blah blah blah. Okay, complete the function below to implement the purple shells effect. What is purple shells? When used, will feature an extra. When used, it warps the last place tracer into the first place tracer into the last place. Okay, that's quite difficult. Okay, when you use the function purple shell of R, so they get swapped. The last and first get swapped. Okay, given the list of racers, set the first place racer at the front of the list to the last place and vice versa. That looks quite tricky. Let me try my luck. Maybe I can even try with the function. So okay, I'm given a list of racers, so I have got 3 racers, and when I get it, I want to take I can do it with temp, of course, right? I can do it with temp, but the point is I think I don't want to do it with the temp. So the last, how do we access the last? Racers of -1 comma racers of 0 equal to racers of 0 comma racers of -1. Can I try my luck? Let's see. So I'm taking the first value, putting them into last value, putting them into first. Let's check. Absolutely right. So we could have done this like this. Let me show you. I'm going to say temp is equal to racers of -1. So I'm going to take the last value, put it to first, and then take the first value and put it into last. Okay, racers of 0, and then I'm going to now take the temp value, which is ideally supposed to go to the first value. Temp. This is also correct. So here we just used like a tuple swap, the Python trick that we just learned. Here I used a temporary variable. Both these are correct. So depending upon where you have better understanding, you can use that. And the last, not the last one. Okay, we have one more. I might probably leave the last one for you to yourself solve. Let's see what are the lengths of the following list. So fill in the variable lengths with your prediction. Try to make a prediction for each list without calling list. Like you have to just guess. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Basically, if you want to guess this thing, just calculate the number of commas you have. Okay, 1, 2, so 2 commas, then it means your length is 3. 2 plus 1, 3. So here you can see only 1 comma is there, right? Leave this. Only 1 comma is there because this is a list of list. So which means 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. So now does it have any element? No element, 0. So this has 1, 2. 2 plus 1, 3. So the length is 3, but you are slicing it. So you have sliced it, right? So now it is 2. So let's say my length is equal to 3, my second length is equal to 2, my third is 0, and my fourth is 2. Is it correct? Absolutely correct. I've got something correct. Okay, we are using, should I do it or should I leave it? Let me see. We are using lists to record people who attended a party and when what order they arrived in. Okay, for example, the following list represents 7 guests, 7 nice names. A guest is considered fashionably late if they arrived after at least half of the party guests. Or they must not be the very last guest, that is taking too far. In the above example, Mona and Gilbert are the only 2 guests who are fashionably late. Complete the below function, which takes the list of party guests as well and as a party attendees as well as a person, and tells us whether the person is fashionably late. Okay, this looks like a slightly interesting assignment. So you have to take the name of a person and you have to say whether they are late. Okay, complete the function below which takes a list of the party attendees, which is this, oops, sorry, and the name, under name return whether the guest was fashionably late. Okay, let's try. If our okay, so first we need to calculate at least half of the guest. How do you calculate half of the list? You need to know length of arrivals. Okay, length of arrivals divided by 2, which is half of guess. So this number gives you half of the guess. For example, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Okay, when you have 7 and you divide it by 2, what do you get? 7 by 2 is 3.5, and here you will have 3.5. Let me just round it. So if you want, you can try. So you can say 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. When you round it, 4. So which means 1 2 3 4, like until your fourth we are good. So after that is what, and we don't want the last one. Okay, so 4 is good. So what we want is, we want guests, half of the guess, which is 0 to 4. So how do we get that? We can we know the first 4, right? So we know the first 4. So now what do we need is, we don't need the last one. We don't need the last one, right? Last guest is equal to, okay, maybe like half of the guest. First I would say half of the guest is arrivals of this, which means you can see what I've done. So I've taken this number, right, which we just calculated, 0 to 4, right? Or maybe you can understand, right? So 7 divided by 2 is 3.5, 3.5 round is 4. So 0 to 4 will get me these names, 0th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Okay, and then this will get me the last one. The last guest is arrivals of -1. Okay, now what I can do is I can create a new list. Okay, I can create a new list and then say this plus this. I can do that. Okay, for example, proper guess. I know I'm doing slightly in a tough way maybe, but just to explain, append of this. So I'm taking this, I don't even know this, right? I can do this thing, half of guess, this, and then append the last guess as well. So now this is done. Okay, now whoever is remaining is the fashionable guest. Okay, so what we can say, if name is not in this, if the name is not in half of the guest, I think I don't have to put yes. Okay, if name is, let me try with this, I forgot. Name is not in half of guess, print fashionable, the guest name plus is fashionably late, else print name. Oh, I have to use plus, is fine, this, okay, is not required. Okay, it says there is an error. What is the error? Got a return value of none given arrivals. Why did we get none? So name Adila. Okay, when you give name Adila, first value is name, you got none. Why did you get none? Name not in half of the guest. Let me even print this, half the guest. Okay, 8. Okay, so we got Ford, Adla, Fleda, Owen, May. Okay, so we have the right set of names, so this part is correct. So then the second part is, if name in, not in. So if Adila is not in this, then we are saying Adila is in this, so it should say name is fine. You know what is the error? It's the same error that I made before. Instead of returning, I'm printing the return. Okay, they want a boolean value. Oops. return true, return false, what a dumb guy. Okay, so all our test cases worked fine. So we have returned positive, return negative. All the test cases we don't have to print this. So let me explain this once again. How did I arrive at? So we have a list of party attendees. We want to find out who is fashionably late. Who's fashionably late is somebody who came after half of the party attendees, but not the last one. So which means you have to exclude half of the party attendees and you have to exclude the last one, and whoever is remaining, that's what fashionably late. And how are we going to figure it out? First we are using length of the list, and then divided by 2, of course, right? So then we get half of the attendees, but we need to round it off so that we can use it for slicing. Now we use it for slicing and get the half of the attendees, the actual attendees. Next we want to get the last name, and then we want to add that name to our list, which we are going to check against. And whoever is not in that list, which is like the proper attendees, then we are going to call them, then we are going to tell them that they are fashionably late. So in this case, the first 4 and the last one have arrived properly, or I think are not fashionably late. So the last one, the one before the last one, Mona and Gilbert, are fashionably late, and our code has successfully worked. And if you really want to check once, you can see for all the test cases that they have given, we have successfully worked it. So there are efficient way to write this code, but just wanted to explain my thought process and write. So at the end of this, we have managed to learn list and tuple, and then we have done the exercise successfully. So so the next one is loops and list comprehension. It's still part of day 5, but I'm going to post it as a second video so that it's easier for us to connect to. Once again, my apologies for uploading this quite late. If you're following me, you might have missed a day. Apologies. I'll try to avoid this, but I hope this video was helpful to you in learning list, tuple, and then solving the exercises. And once you finish the exercise, don't forget to save it. If you have any comments, please let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, see you in the next video, which is part B of day 5, which is about loops and list comprehensions.